Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Council on Future Conflict. My name is Scott. I am the proprietor of the Future Conflict channel, and today we've got episode 486. We're talking domestic hotspots and Europe saving face. I should have put a question mark at the end of that because ultimately it's them realizing that they may end up be holding the bag, um, on this whole Ukraine war deal. And if they keep pushing it, they're going to be holding the bag on European defense, which I think they're realizing that ain't going to work out too good without the U.S. So we'll kind of dive into that today. It should be interesting. Um, I was thinking about this as I was listening to the show start. We are 5 minutes late. Actually, we were 6 minutes late when I pushed the button. And I wish I could say that we were scrambling and getting things done at the last minute, but that's not true. Um, I literally just lost track of time.
And I was showing elk pictures, so
And Joe was, so we were just kind of living our best lives, there for about 6 minutes. So, all right, I apologize. Anyway, guys, how you doing, Joe? You were you were showing those pictures. You want to show it again? I mean, that was a pretty good. How you doing?
I don't know that I have them up right now.
That's all right. Oh yeah, there we go. Watcher's got them. Yeah.
Oh, Washer's got them. So yeah, I was driving along Montana 35. I know Will Archer from Shield Arms doesn't want me to tell people this was in Montana because it might make you want to come here. We're full, but this is the biggest herd of elk I've ever seen. You always see them on social media of like hundreds of elk crossing the road, but they really do travel in these big, gigantic packs. And here's a herd that we saw just outside of Kalispell, just north of the camp. So pretty darn cool. There had to be well over 100 of them here in this field. Really, really neat. And as you can see, the snow is mostly gone north of here because they get sunshine there. I don't get sunshine here because I got mountains on both sides, and the sun doesn't get over this until like 11. So, but hey, it's pretty cool. It was really awesome to see. There's a lot of big bucks laying in the front with their horns up there, or bull, I guess they're not bucks, but bull elk. Really, really cool.
That's awesome. I mean, let's be totally transparent. I mean, that kind of thing just makes you feel good, just seeing it, right? Like whether you're traveling and you're on the road and you see it like somewhere,
Yeah.
or you're down the road from your house. In Kentucky, they say we have more white-tailed deer now in Kentucky than we had, when the country was settled. And ironically, like, in suburban Louisville, Kentucky, you can like find herds of like 25, 35 deer just like in suburbia, and it's just like, they don't
So,
tend to do that, but they get in there sometimes, and then,
so they
it's a
say the
herd.
corridor of Montana 83, the road that Camp Ponderosa is on, from
Yeah.
Clearwater Junction to Big Fork, has the most deer in the state of Montana. I would challenge it probably has the most deer in the U.S. because even when I drive just to the post office 10 minutes away, I'll see 20 or 30 deer on the side of the road. And just this area is so wild. There's white-tailed deer. We've got mule deer. We've got elk. We've got everything here, right? Lions, bears, and wolves. Oh my!
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. And Lost Core, I'm way ahead of you. There's already jerky. We don't talk about that. So,
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, caught in season jerky, of
oh yeah,
course.
totally bought it at the store. And the other thing is that Mrs. Tactical Wisdom said for the longest time, "There's really no elk here. You guys are all pulling my leg." And she was with me when we drove past that. And she was like, "Okay, I cannot deny the elk for sure."
Right. Watcher, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, doing good. Uh, pray for me, chat. Last night, the wife discovered bantam chickens. So,
What are those?
yay. Those are chickens that are roughly 1/6 the size of a regular chicken. They're generally kept as pets. They're
Oh, the rest of the world calls those pigeons.
Yeah.
no. Very, very distinctly chickenish. very asshole-ish from what I am given to understand, but they're sure cute right now. So pray for me, chat. Pray for me.
Did you buy some?
Yeah. The wife got sent out to grab another bag of feed from the feed store. Came back with a little bit extra.
So did she buy 50?
No, just the 5.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, that's good. Well, I mean, so what are your chicken numbers up to now?
We're actually we've hit around 64 now. So
Good Lord.
So we've got we have 50 that are actually production hens, and then we've got 6 that are my daughter's FFA project, and then one for my one for my other daughter, and one for my boy, and then my wife's 5 bantams. So yeah.
Well, good luck to you there, brother. I don't, I think you're going to need it.
Yeah.
Hunches
I
every
think
$5 says the sends the toughest battles to the strongest warriors. Good luck, watcher.
there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, from what I've been shown, once you make the commitment to doing chickens and put the infrastructure in place, adding a few chickens into the mix is really not that big a deal.
Yeah. Well, you'll be fine, and I think you're going to find it turns out very kind of rewarding in the end. So
That's as long as these eggs have a market, Scott, then this is all going to end up very, very well for us.
What do I always say? Your heritage is the militant farmer. So that's you, watcher.
Rah.
All right, gentlemen, let's jump into this sucker. We got started late, so I feel like I have to get us moving early. So our first odds and ends here. This is one of those kind of big picture stories, right? And so what happens when you have a bunch of countries in the world, the US being one of them, that buys into this idea of globalism, which, I mean, let's be honest, if you take it just by itself, there's nothing wrong with it, as long as you take care of yourself. But the problem is when you buy into it fully, then you open yourself up to weakness, right? And that's where we are right now. We can't make our own steel. We can't make our own rare earth metals. We can't do any of these things for ourselves because we bought into the idea of buying it or getting it from somewhere else. And this is one of the things that Donald Trump has actually kind of set one of the reasons why he's bringing the tariffs in to kind of to generate domestic production and domestic industry. So let's look at this. As globalism breaks down, nations must produce their own survival necessities. And, Joe, this goes to the reason why this resonated for me is it goes to something we've talked about a lot of the show, which is the idea of like national strategic resources, right? Both in production of essential things like steel, but also in shipbuilding, right? This is something we've completely plot on, which our ex friend John Conrad's done a really bang up job of bringing that to the fore, and I think he was even involved in some meetings in DC. So
since Stan's not here, I'm going to represent him and say what they mean by globalism is a small cabal run out of the museum that is Europe, backed up by American muscle. That was their definition of globalism, right?
Yeah.
The American military ran by the EU. And that's just not going to work out in the long run anymore.
Well, I think they've realized that they may not have their big brother or their big Uncle Sam to back them up going into the future. So,
well, I can't imagine why. I mean, they began the entire globalist strategy with self-flagellation, with being so sorry for who they were and attempting to improve the lives of people who hate them, that it's led almost to suicide.
Yeah. Well, they're clearly acting in their own disinterest, right? Let me read a little bit of this here. The term protectionism is generally treated as a pejorative in the economic world, akin to isolationism and populism. Oh God, heaven forbid we are populists. In an era where globalism is treated as the end-all be-all of social and geopolitical evolution, the idea of taking a step back and reconsidering the notion of independence is self-reliance is abhorrent. And it's ironic. These are two things, independent and self-reliant, that we prided ourselves on as Americans, right? Whether it's at the individual level or the macro level of the entire country, we always wanted to be that kind of stands alone kind of country. But we have fallen far from that ideal. I don't know who voted for these financial elites to take on such a role. As one, I can tell you. By the way, this is an op-ed, so he's speaking in the first person. But they certainly have assumed authority to dictate the path of international trade, current methodology, and even debt creation. Central bankers and their globalist counterparts control every fiscal policy that determines if you or I live a life of plenty or a life of peasantry. And with the flip of a switch, can send the whole global system crashing down. The globalists have this power because there are no fail safes, there's no redundancy, and there is no plan B. This is something I think we saw, Joe, when they kind of unveiled the whole Great Reset. With the idea of, hey, you're not living your life the right way, and we're going to use this COVID opportunity to show you how you should live your life.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. You're going to live it our way because you people are just so greedy and terrible. That's not a good basis to build things upon.
Yeah, you're not smart enough to figure this
You're
civilization
just not smart
stuff.
enough. Yeah.
That's right. But what happens when globalists create international division and sow seeds of instability? What happens when they create multiple wars? Because the irony is, Joe, is that while they tried to create some kind of global system, they also created the fractures that caused this kind of instability that we've seen in the last honestly, this is what we featured on the show for the last 3 years. Let's see. Today, there are at least 3 regions of the world. Gosh, Joe, tell me if this sounds familiar. 3 regions of the world where World War III could spark off, including Ukraine, Iran, Israel, and Taiwan. Sanctions between NATO countries and Russia have greatly affected Europe's energy scrutiny. The EU has been sabotaging itself with climate change regulations that are destroying the ability to build more power plants and produce more food. The BRIC nations are actively pursuing a new currency system to cut out the U.S. dollar as the world reserve. Let's see. Global banking institutions like the BIS and the IMF are getting ready to introduce CBDCs, which we know is essentially the devil, and new frameworks for banking exchange. The globalists have created a scenario in which globalism is an exponential detriment. And I think that's absolutely correct.
On the topic of CBDCs,
Yeah.
I read this book once that said that having to have a mark to do commerce was a negative thing. And it's kind of where we are.
The mark of
I can't remember. The mark of the something.
Yeah.
But anyway, on that note, I think that what happened was when the whole globalist plan came about as the Soviet Union collapsed, they were counting on Gorbachev's and Yeltsin's running Russia. And therefore, they'd have been able to guilt them and cajole them into line. What they did not count on was Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not play that game. Or he believes that if that game is going to be played, he should be the man at the top. And that has not worked out well for them. That's why you see them constantly pushing for war with Russia. That's why you see them constantly trying to expand against his borders to contain him. I'm not saying he's a good, that he should be the leader, but I'm also saying he's doing what's best for his people.
Yeah. Well, so I want to tie this into something you said on X yesterday. So bear with me here for a second, Joe. It says here, what concerns me the most is that far too many countries and communities will do nothing about domestic production until they hit a hard supply crunch. And like a great example of that is, you and your home, right? And I'm just going to wait until we need food and then I'm going to buy it, right? And then all of a sudden you need food and you can't buy it. And so you wrote something on X yesterday about being a prepper or whatever is nothing to do with these kind of low percentage chance kind of situations,
Incident.
but
Yeah.
but more preparing for the second and third order effects when any kind of incident occurs. And I thought that was a great point. I would hope you would kind of articulate that, and then I want to bring it back to this topic.
Sure. What it started about was some guys were discussing, like, hey, so many preppers are hyper focused on their one niche thing. Like, I'm preparing for a pandemic, or I'm preparing for a Russian invasion, or I'm preparing for the aliens to land, whatever it is. I'm preparing for a hurricane. The truth is that if anything else happens, they're not prepared because all they had was stuff for that one thing. Instead, if you prepare for the second and third order effects of any disaster, no power, inability to get fuel, inability to buy food, and people behaving badly, you're going to be set up for no matter what happens. So that's where we need to make our focus. And that's been my whole philosophy all the way along, right?
Yeah.
If you plan for just those things, you're going to be pretty good for 95% of everything that happens.
Yeah, no, I just want to take that on a kind of a macro, um, like a macro kind of focus, right? I think we should apply that same idea to our country, right? We
Yeah.
shouldn't wait until we need steel and then start making steel. We should be making steel before we need steel. We should be. You shouldn't wait till you need electricity to buy a battery backup. You should get a battery backup just in case you ever need electricity and the lights don't turn on at the switch, right? It's this whole idea of forward thinking. It's not all about completely replacing international trade. Nobody's saying that. We're not saying that we shouldn't get good deals on the open market. What we're saying is that we should have a certain amount of domestic production of all the critical items. And let's be honest, in so many things, America can be completely self-sufficient, whether it's food or energy, which are the two biggies, by the way. If you're going to be self-sufficient in two things, food and energy should be it. But Joe, how many of these scenarios have we looked at in a lot of the great books that are out there that basically say, well, we're so monoculture, monocropped out, and that we're reliant on a kind of a grid-based system that if we were to lose one little thing, the entire chain, even domestically, would collapse. So we need to look at that, the weaknesses in that system. And so are we in a good shape? No, we're not, because, as a nation, we're too tied to, too many of these fragile, mono systems, whether it's the power grid or whether it's just-in-time inventory control that companies use. There needs to be some contingency planning going on for, God, what happens if the lights go out?
So that's actually been an issue this week in that a pretty good chunk of customers in the area just north of Detroit get their power from the Canadian grid. And Doug Ford said that he would shut that off if America instituted tariffs. Well, it's not as easy as flipping a switch and throwing them from one grid to the other. It doesn't work that way. And so that goes exactly to your point, right? We haven't built that resilience in that keeps those people on American power. It's also why I share so many of those power bank things, man. So many people take electricity for granted. And sure, those power banks seem expensive right now, but in week 2 of a power outage, you're going to think it was the best money you ever spent. But
no, that's exactly right. I think that's actually a good point for us to to put a pin in this one. Watcher, you got any kind of thoughts on this you want to bring out?
No, I think you and Joe have said it well.
All right. Hey, let's move on to our next one here in odds and ends. Joe, I know this is going to be shocking to you when I tell you that the Civil War is now official. It's official. Like it wasn't official before.
It wasn't official for the last 9 years, 12 years.
Right.
It's official now.
In fairness, and you made this point before the show, there has been a pause in a lot of the kind of the heaviest fighting between the different factions, but that kind of broke loose yesterday or the day before yesterday or this, whatever. Civil war is now official. Syria erupts into the worst bloodshed since Assad's fall. Any lingering delusions that Syria could emerge from its Western-imposed regime change victimhood and enter an era of peace and stability were obliterated on Thursday as 48 people were killed in battles between supporters of the deposed Bashar al-Assad government and the country's new radical Islamist regime, as all-out civil war looms, increasingly disturbing sectarian violence as important minority sect asking Russian intervention to safeguard their lives. You know, Joe, I'd be honest with you. If I was going to remain loyal, hold on a second. If I was going to remain loyal to something, it wouldn't be Bashar al-Assad. But I get the feeling this is more of a ethnic affinity group more so than a loyalist group.
It's more of a one sect versus the other, right?
Yeah,
Alawites
exactly.
versus the rest. But if only we had a historic example immediately to the east that we could look at. Remember what happened in Iraq? We steamrolled the Iraqi army in an incredibly short time. Then there was a lull as the coalition provisional authority was set up, and the Baathists didn't know what we were going to do. And then we did the wrong thing and fired all of the Baathist officials, disbanded the army and all of that. And then within 24 hours, the civil war there broke out, or the fighting broke out, right? The insurgency began. This is exactly the same thing. The Alawites kind of had their heads down for a little bit, thinking, what are we going to do? And when they saw them consolidating the gains, and more importantly, the Western world propping up HTS, they decided, hey, this is our moment. We either have to fight or we're going to probably get killed by these guys. And here we are. And that whole headline article of Civil War is official is more proof of the Western media propping up the Al Qaeda regime, trying to make it seem legitimate.
Yeah, in fairness, I think that this writer is using that as tongue in cheek because you basically said the first line showed that he kind of, I think, agrees with us. Any lingering delusion.
When you look around at Western media, they all said kind of the same thing. What I was going to say was that it's literally a group of thugs who took over one city. That does not make them the government.
Yeah. In the town of Jabla, which lies in the Syrian coastal Latakia province, pro-Assad forces ambushed and killed 16 members of the regime's security forces. In ensuing retaliation, 28 pro-Assad militants and 4 civilians died. Latakia holds the highest concentration of Alawites, which is a minority sect of Islam that's principally found in Syria. The Assad family themselves being the most prominent members. Yeah, so basically the Alawites were the kind of the chosen people for Assad, and he gave a lot of preferred treatment to them and whatnot. And so, like I said, I think this is less about loyalty to Assad and more about, Alawite affinity, and sectarian kind of fighting more so than anything. Alawites comprise 10% of the country's population. This is kind of like the whole, Sunni Shia divide that we saw in Iraq. You kind of mentioned that. Notably, the province is home to Russian-operated Khamenei Air Base. The ambush targeted regime forces. Didn't Tartus in that area, or is that the province to the south of there?
Yes.
Yeah. The ambush targeted regime forces who carried on an operation in rural Latakia aimed at arresting a former Assad government official. The ambush was well executed, according to a security official. In a well-planned and premeditated attack, several groups of Assad militant remnants attacked our positions and checkpoints, targeted many of our patrols in the Jebla area. I bet the people who got killed were probably not the actual people who did the ambush. The pro-Assad forces are said to have included soldiers loyal to the former Syrian army, although it's unknown whether the Hassan himself participates in the battles. Former Syrian army general Sulhail al-Hassan, if I remember correctly, he was that guy who had a lot of people kind of gathering in, in rural areas within that area, the Latakia province, right when all this stuff was going on, and they basically didn't jump into the fight heavily. They were a little cannier and basically kept their powder dry while HTS was focused on those bigger cities. And as you could see in that clip that we just played, this area is fairly green, lush, a lot of trees, a lot of mountainous areas in there. So this is not going to be easy fighting for the HTS guys. Yeah, this is what I was showing you guys, basically firing into these Alawite buildings. That's the way to make friends and influence people in Syria for sure.
It's the Middle East. I wonder what was in there that they were hitting that was reacting so.
I think what that is the tracers that got in there and then kept burning inside. I don't know that anything was catching on fire, but if those tracers hit furniture and things like that, that'd set that shit on fire. Thursday's fighting may be a precursor to something far more intense, and I would agree that's probably the case. We also saw YPG attacking Syrian National. What is it? What do they call it? The Syrian National Army? Is that what they call? Yeah. So the Kurds up in the north were also fighting with the Syrian National Army as well. Combat comes along rising sectarian violence with Sunni militants victimizing Alawites. Security forces themselves has engaged in executions, kidnappings, and some home seizures. Sunni shooting at the residents of Alawites in Homs province.
Al-Qaeda aren't the good guys?
I know.
I was assured they were.
Say it ain't so, Joe. Come on. I mean, that's who we were giving weapons to, right? So they got to be the good guys. We would only support the good guys, right? And then you've got things like them dragging bodies behind their pickup trucks. So, I mean, like I said, this is going to cause way more trouble than it's squashing. So we'll probably see this erupt into some heavy fighting here in the next couple of weeks. Protests against the new Sunni regime erupted in several cities. Latakia City, Tartus, demonstrators demanding the regime forces withdraw from the area. RT reports that Alawites were begging for Russia, the United Nations, and international community to protect them under the pretext of pursuing remnants of Assad regime, while in reality they aim to terrorize and kill the Syrian people.
I just have to say, with people like this, I feel that the best way to deal with them is to mock them, and I really wish that we had like a foam finger filter we could toss over this.
I'd like to do a voiceover, with that guy, where he's, talking about turn our internet back on. We need more.
Oh yeah, hey, good point. He did just post a video of himself gesticulating where you can't see his lips, so you could literally make him say anything.
Yeah, as long as you
PKM behind him. So,
amen, brother. Let's see. More significantly, RT said civil war is now official. Okay, so that's RT that they're quoting, pointing to a military. I think, I'll be honest with you, I think the Russian standpoint was kind of like they were hoping to avoid any of this kind of stuff so they could maintain their bases, both, the air base and the naval base, which I don't believe they completely gave up the ghost on, but pointing to a public declaration to establishes a new military council for the liberation of Syria amongst the group's goal, liberating all Syrian territory from all occupying and terrorist forces, rebuilding strong institutions and the national democratic foundations, protecting the lives and property of Syrian citizens. Let's be honest. You're not going to get any of this stuff done while you have Al Qaeda as the main proponent of the government of Syria, and you have non-Syrians in the government. Let's see. And then the final thing in this story, of course, is a picture of Bibi laughing his ass off. Meanwhile, to the extent Israel's government wants Syria to become a failed state, there are smiles aplenty in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as the chaos and bloodshed mounts. I'll be honest with you. I think this is exactly what Israel wants. Joe, what do you think the odds are Israel has anything to do with any of this stuff?
I'm sorry. I'm not a Dem Jews guy. I don't think anyone wants to see mass widespread in death and murder amongst anyone. I think that it's what they predicted and everyone told them they were wrong. There's a difference there between them wanting it and them predicting it.
Yeah, see, so, I come at this from a national interest standpoint, right? Is it in Israel's national interest to have a unified Syria on their border? And I think the answer is no. But on the other hand, is it in Israel's interest to have a hot civil war on their border? The answer to that is also no. So, it's probably, not too hot, not too cold, but somewhere in the middle is just right, is my kind of take on that.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's my take, whatever. Your mileage may vary.
I will not finish my answer then.
Oh. All right. Watcher, any thoughts before we move on?
On civil war in Syria or on the Jews plotting it?
Just the I don't think anybody talk about the Jews plotting it, but just the civil war as a whole, Syria as a whole.
It's a real shame. Couldn't have happened to a nicer group of people.
Let them fight.
On a real note, though, I mean, it is interesting that all this is happening, right? I guess it makes sense that all of these various different shakeups in the Middle East are happening right now. But it is just kind of interesting to me that all this does shake out right at the end of the Biden coma term, and right before somebody actually took over at the helm.
Yeah. Well, I wonder about the timing of the whole Turkish, push to get Al Qaeda off its ass, and finally, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of very interesting things lining up in world events. Although I'm excited for the next story, partially because I don't have to be the screen share for it.
That's true. Joe, you've got our next odds and ends. You kind of talk us through
tab. Yeah. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. I'm working on it right now. There we go.
While you're doing that, I do just have to give chat one little thing. Good morning.
Lovely. All right, I've got it shared there. Let me pull up the notes on this. So there's a group out there, a Facebook group, called. Did it go away?
No, we got you. You're on.
But it's not where it was supposed to be. Stand by. There we go. And right here. Okay, so that's what it's supposed to be on. The Trans Army. They have the recruiting via Facebook and Instagram and a couple of other places, but not Twitter, most importantly. It's got over 55,000 followers. If you look there, it's got 557,000 followers. It's looking to bring together transgender, intersex, and non-binary individuals for community defense. They want to plan direct actions against those who don't espouse support of the LGBTQ agenda. They have mentioned here that they want to recruit ex-military members. There's a message a little bit further down saying they want military people to come and help them train. They're trying to stockpile weapons and ammunition, and they literally have a post out that says to train to kill for a paramilitary insurrection against the U.S. government. We don't intend to play defense, and we ain't pacifists. The Trans Army asks their followers to show me your darkest desires, show me your hatred for the human race. Let's let the world know the LGBTQ community will not go away silently. We have the right to fight against those who oppose us. I'll point out that is a direct violation of the United States Code, advocating the overthrow of the United States government, particularly the violent one. But they're allowed to continue to do so. If Scott and I started a Facebook group that said the same thing, we'd already be in jail just for having mentioned it. But you have to be aware of these threats and what's going on out there. So,
and if you're there chuckling to yourself, thinking, "Ho ho, what military member is going to teach these guys?" Remember that the VA has trans veteran affinity groups for a reason.
Yeah, and let me point out everyone who's laughing and joking about it in the Rumble chat. Hey, they're actually doing it though. They're actually getting out, training, organizing, and stockpiling ammo. You have to take that seriously. You can laugh and joke about it all you want, but if you get killed by some untrained LGBTQ guy, you're just as dead as if you were trained by a Russian commando, killed by a Russian commando. They're actually training and organizing, which is far better than a lot of folks on the right are.
Well, the irony, Joe, is that it's not like it's not you going up against them in a fair fight. It's them ambushing you when you're getting gas or when you're pulled over at a stop sign, or and all they have to know is they see a Trump bumper sticker or some sort of something on your car or whatever that identifies you. Maybe a Gadsden flag or a come take that. Anything that they can say, oh, well, that guy's a bad guy. We're gonna take him out.
Stop putting target indicators on your cars, people.
Yeah.
You know what? Be Prepared makes a great point. Pretty sure we had an Antifa insert at a scout course. Yes, and Matt threw him out right away. And yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. That's a great point. The 9-9 boys, the German squad leader, was probably Antifa. So
how did he identify? How did you guys identify him?
Argumentative about everything. Him and his brother when at certain times would speak in German to each other around everyone else who didn't speak German, and just their general overall appearance. And despite the fact that the weather was a little bit warm, both wore full sleeves shirts all the time. I get it. I advocate that. But after hours, I take my cami blouse off and I'm wearing a t-shirt and everyone can see my arms. And they did not. So there was just a lot of interesting things about that.
Yeah.
They were incredibly odd. Just like Be Prepared says there, they had odd behavior the whole time. And they actually wanted to learn. But they couldn't let their mouths let them learn. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, these people are out there. And here's the thing. One of the things that makes them different from us is they literally live with hatred in their heart. And so that means that they literally could snap at any moment. A lot of them are damaged, abused people who have been brainwashed into a mode of thought that gives them very little options on.
Let's be honest. What have most of the mass shooters of the last 5 years been, and why? Because until relatively recently, probably the Obama administration, we treated transgenderism as the mental illness that it is.
Right.
Then all of a sudden we decided it's not mental illness.
I will just say that as a sign of hope for this exact topic, though, it does appear that the walls are finally crumbling on the whole facade of pretending any of that was ever helpful or medicine or real or anything more than kind of a sexually deviant cult movement. I don't know if you guys saw this, but even if you want a barometer on where the left is at and what they think is the winning message, look no further than Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom went on a podcast yesterday and talked.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
Said, well, yeah, like he admitted that yes, of course, it's wrong to let boys play with girls, and that's ultimately what we're talking about. But listen, they'll commit suicide if you don't. And then literally same day, we also have multiple long form studies coming out that take into account the results of other studies and actually properly report them, which stated that transgender quote unquote healthcare isn't healthcare, as we've all said. It has no beneficial outcomes whatsoever, and in fact it significantly increases instances of depression, suicidality, and we'll just say other unwanted outcomes. The people who get the treatment are significantly more likely. So
Yeah.
Given the fact that they're far more likely to eventually become pedos, I'm okay with them possibly committing suicide.
yeah.
Hot
It's the
take.
least harmful thing for society.
All right. I'm not going to tempt the YouTube gods that much. All right. So let's wrap this up, guys. You know, who do you think our most likely active enemy is going to be?
In regards to what?
Well, so the trans, like these kind of weirdos, like the Ziz cult or Ziz, whatever, or then you've got plain old Antifa, or then you've got racial affinity.
Enough, Scott, they all bundle themselves together. So
I know that. That's my point. Is where do you think the banner's gonna?
They're all funded by. I can't think of the name of the country, but they speak Chinese.
Right. Well, there's plenty of Americans that are funding them too. Mr. Soros, we're looking at you. Because Acorn was back in the day was the money bundler for all of these groups. So that's kind of you guys both kind of put down. You picked up what I was putting down as far as the fact that they're all basically one and the same. It's just a matter of which banner they're flying. Is it the pro-Palestinian banner?
Exactly
is
right.
It trans banner? Is it the
and money bundler is a really weird way to say money launderer?
Yeah,
but hey, yes.
All right. I think we're PZ clean on this one, guys. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll add. Holy cow! Thank you so much for your support out there. It looks like we have nearly 700 viewers on X.
Yeah, Joe, I think your little tweet out there helped out.
Hey, we had 2,700 last night on Sons of Liberty when we did it on X for the first time. And for those of you who are in the chat who watched Sons of Liberty live and actually got to see us live rather than just listen to us, let me know in the chat how you liked it. Liked the new format. Matt and I decided on Tuesday that was probably the way to go. But let me know what you think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but you guys might see some more cool stuff out of that show in the near future. I'm excited.
Yeah,
to be looking at.
I think Johnny Paratrooper's Rhodesian Ridgeback last night stole the show.
Oh,
he has a couple of them, and there was a Ridgeback fight going on in the background, and it's kind of funny.
I love those dogs. One of my best friends growing up had one. It's so good.
Let me catch up.
We were in a animal shelter once, and we were just walking through looking at the dogs. Well, we've been in an animal shelter far more than once. But we were walking through looking at the dogs, and when this Rhodesian Ridgeback was sitting in his cage peacefully, and then he saw me, and he jumped up and started barking and wagging his tail, and my wife looked at me and goes, "He knows." I'm like, "Oh, he knows. That's my man right there."
Let me catch up with these super chats. Penis says helicopter tours for $2 says, how do statements like theirs not qualify as Fed posting or at least getting a visit after these Zizay cult people were exposed. I'm all for legitimate threats being followed up on, even if it's just to kind of knock on the door and kind of, touch basis with them, let them know that their public communications are being considered. But that being said, I think our side of we tend to be less censorious and less kind of going after people for just kind of running their mouth a little bit.
Well, I do have to say that, I mean, were this a right-wing group, everyone would be expecting that the people at the bottom of it were feds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there's a fine line, and there's a very specific wording in the United States Code that says advocating the overthrow of the U.S. government will get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And they literally did that, and nothing has happened to them. That's because they still have top cover from the FBI. They still don't care. The ATF don't care. They're new to the Second Amendment, and they're new to firearms rights. So they're not on the ATF targeting radar yet. So I actually did. On that note, let me just digress the show for a second. Did anyone see the letter released by Palmetto State Armory, their parent company, last night about the ATF pick?
No.
He said he needed to pick someone from the actual firearms industry, someone who's actually an advocate for the Second Amendment. And I'm pretty sure they were putting forward Josiah McCullough, their own, the CEO. Wow. But that'd be cool because I actually know that guy, and that would be pretty solid.
If I may, I predict there won't be a ATF head because I predict that they're going to roll the ATF into the FBI before that happens.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say there hasn't been a name put forward yet, like by the administration. It's just in Kash Patel, who's the interim kind of acting director, right?
Yes, interim.
Peter Chase Helicopter Tours for $2 says I might be free to post target identifiers on my vehicle because I have these black SUVs who follow me everywhere. Well, just because they're following you doesn't mean they'll save you. They actually may be, hoping that you draw fire.
Yeah,
gang stalking's the best, bro.
Rowan Court for $5 says, listen to y'all while I drive to North Carolina for a night 5K run, running gun. Thanks for the entertainment, Drew P. Balls.
They make special underwear for that, Rowan. I mean,
they do.
Picks them up. So,
all right, yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm pretty happy with what I've heard come out of the administration about ATF, but that's what I've heard. This is not what I've seen yet. So I'd really like to see some paring down of the ATF. Talk about a right for Doge cutting. I think it's that. And then I'd also like to see, there's certain things that they can't do, right? There's certain things that the Congress has to do, like some of the NFA Act and all that kind of stuff has to be kind of withdrawn by an act of Congress. But you can do an awful lot within the administrative state to make it less burdensome.
You could do the same thing you did with the immigration informant for the last immigration enforcement for the last 4 years. Just say we're not going to do that anymore.
Gents,
very simple.
As enthralling as this conversation is, I've been reliably informed that we are now yanking visas from Hamas protesters.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
I think that's a great idea. If you are a foreign student who engages in a protest against the United States government, yes, goodbye.
100%. Militant Roots member for 12 months said, thanks for the great show, guys. Stay prepping, everyone. Grow food, grow community, improve your position, train hard. Yep, all those things. I think that's good. And you'll be a more interesting person if you train.
That the ATF has said they won't that they won't honor, like the Montana Gun Rights Act, which says that if you're a firearms manufacturer in Montana and you make a firearm to be sold to a resident of Montana, then you don't have to go through the federal hoops. And the federal government issued a letter to all of the gun dealers in Montana and said, yeah, but you still have an FFL. If you have an FFL, you still have to follow it. technically they don't under Montana law, but the federal government has threatened to still take that action, and no one has challenged it in court yet. I believe it's about to be, but no one has, and I think they would lose that argument because states' rights do exist. So
Yeah, I think
what they could do is say, hey, the ATF is going to withdraw those letters and just let it go, much like they did with the FRTs. People are getting their FRTs back in the mail from the ATF. So.
The other thing, the other thing that the federal
We can't
government
hear you.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it swapped mics.
My mic is on.
Yeah, your mic has vanished on you.
That's weird.
I will say, gents, I know that we've got a little more to talk about on what we're talking about, but just be thinking about it. We're about to move into the main topic. We've already got spicy enough in odds and ends that we're worried about the YouTube analytics, and it's Friday, so I propose we make the move over to Rumble.
Yeah, I'm good with that. If you, I tell you, let's finish out this topic, and then we'll do Joe's commercial segment, and then we'll move over to Rumble. Guys, the one thing that I would say about this whole ATF situation and things that they could do is, let's assume that they keep all the rules basically in place, right? Well, there's, what you were just talking about, Joe, the federal government absolutely hangs its hat on the interstate commerce clause. As long as activities take place within the state and you clearly mark for Montana use only or whatever on a lower receiver or a suppressor or something like that, then those items could be used, sold, and traded and consumed or whatever within the state of Montana, right? And now you wouldn't have to be knowingly if you took them across the state lines, then that would be a interstate commerce type thing. Maybe not if you maintained it in your possession, just for use.
Yeah, like if I went to a class out of state, that wouldn't violate it. Now, if I sold it out of state, absolutely.
Right. That would. So maybe that would make sense. And then another thing is, and Joe, this as much as anybody, a lot of these 6-month turnarounds on getting a Form 4 or Form 1 taken care of for like a can. Or, well, I was going to say for making a firearm or making a suppressor or transferring a suppressor. I think all of those forms could be done like that if they really wanted to. This is not something hard to do. It's probably a week of administrative work, bureaucratic work, and so these forms
I've got
should
an entirely different attitude on that than you.
No, I'm saying if you don't get rid of anything. I agree. I agree with you. What I'm saying is if you because you could just not enforce it. Yeah. But the problem with that is then the new administration comes in that decides they're going to enforce it. Then ipso facto, all those previous ones are now illegal. So
all that they're doing is taxing your right. They just want the $200. They really don't care about much of anything else. And
I agree with that.
It's silly. You're taxing a right. And I read a Supreme Court decision where you can't do
that. Saying that time is now down to days. That's great. If it is, then it always should have been down to days.
I don't know. Hunch, tell us how long it took you. I think yours was pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the kind of the total turnaround is. Oh, look at that. We got over a grand total viewers, over 1,000 total viewers right now live, not including Rumble, which is sitting at over 150. So that's
listen.
all right.
That's why I need to tweet it out every time.
Heck yeah.
Whenever I tweet it out, it does better. So
now, by the way, unless Joe and Watcher have other plans, Joe and Watcher will be taking the show next week. So if you think that my pedantic ramblings are not your cup of tea and you'd rather have the 45-minute version of the show, that's what you'll be able to look forward to next week. So tune in for that. Probably it'll go off on time as well. see. Lance Corporal Veteran for $1 says the ATF needs to be reduced to an offing a broom closet. Dude, you're giving them way too much. It should not be a fucking broom closet. It shouldn't even be a thing. They shall
They
not
should have an
infringe.
honorary toilet named after them, so you can take a dump on the ATF. I think it's a great idea.
I tell you what, if they should review the records, and if any ATF agent was killed by a legitimate criminal, not in some infringement activity like Ruby Ridge or Waco or something like that. If any ATF was killed in a legitimate crime, I think you maybe give that guy a plaque, but those plaques would be the last vestige of the ATF.
I don't know. Maybe hang that across something that's got like documentation surrounding Fast and Furious and all that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, one wall and then the other wall.
Here's the thing: there are probably some decent people who have served in the ATF. I don't know who they are. I'm willing to, if any of them died in the line of service to save the cartel or something like that, I'm willing to kind of, give them absolution, right, for the sins of all the other ATF Nazis. Lost Core 23 for $10 says, my master plan is to take over the show through Scott is shattered. Well,
Be Prepared said that apparently next week Ukrainian town names will be pronounced correctly.
I bet Joe and Watcher won't talk about Ukraine hardly at all next week.
I'm betting we probably will not.
Not unless something big happens. Who knows? Peace could.
Not unless something really big does. However,
break out.
On that note, we're talking Ukraine later, though, right? Today?
Yeah. We got some Ukraine.
Because I want to point out that Rick and I may be right. There is a serious preparation of the battle space in Odessa going on right now.
And we will look at that as it gets. All right, guys. Joe, do you want to tell people about what's going on with tactical-wisdom.com real quick?
Sure. There's an article up over there that reviews the Fieldcraft course and the Scout course that just happened. I wasn't there for the recce, but plenty of folks in the chat were there for the recce, and Hunch was there for the AK course. I don't know if Be Prepared was too or not, but anyway, review of a couple courses over there. I've got courses still up. I've got a course next weekend here on community security. Plenty of room still available in that one. And I want to remind everyone that we do have the big SHIELD event coming up in July 25th through the 27th. We'll have SHIELD field days that will feature some members of the Future Council on Future Conflict, probably a live show or two from here, and all kinds of other fun stuff that we're working on to kind of improve the event over last year, more people. And for sure, 100%, Chris Weatherman, Angry American, will be here selling and signing books and giving a talk about something. I'll give him some sort of a topic. I'm not going to tell him until 5 minutes before because it's more fun that way. I've actually seen him wing it. He's a lot like me in that he can get up and talk about nothing for a half hour. So it's going to be a good time. Come on out, spend some time with us. We got plenty of camping space. I think most of the rooms are going to be taken by people who are speaking and whatever, or the people I like and decide to give a room to. Let them rent a room. But we've got 8 RV spaces and unlimited tent camping, and there's lots of other lodging in the valley you can go to and check out the whole Swan River Valley and Flathead River Valley. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, Jace up. I see Mountain Readiness coming up. Mountain Readiness very publicly invited me, but I don't think I can make it, given that Matt and I have a big class here the couple weeks after, and I have a boss that I have to report to. And if it was Stan, it'd be okay, but it's not Stan. It's Mrs. Dolio, and I don't think she's down with that. So anyway, that's what I've got going on. Check out my website. All T-shirts that were ordered in the last few weeks have gone out, as have all books. So it's time to order some more books, people. Get on it.
Absolutely. All right. Guys, I think this is our cue to move on over to Rumble. Let's drop the link here in the chat real quick. If one of our mods could help me out with that, the link to the Rumble room in the chat. So the reason we do this, just if you're new to the show and you don't understand, is because YouTube is rather prickly over certain topics. Yes, censorious over, and it tends to be connected to domestic topics. So we like to go over to Rumble to talk about those and many other things. X will still be completely. So if you want to check us out on X, you can do chatting from there, as you've seen the guys in the chat here. Let me find one and I'll put it up. There we go. X is good to go for chatting as well. So if you want to check us out on X, you can do that. Actually, you know what? Let's throw that link in the chat. Maybe if they'd rather go to X, they could do that. Final thoughts, guys, before we move over, Joe?
Yes, Marcus R. I have been informed by a very close and trustworthy source that the Fieldcraft course is highly recommended for anyone interested in the Scout and Recce courses. I believe that Marcus's close and trustworthy source is named Marcus. I'm just telling you.
Many such cases.
Very good. Very good.
But anyway, several could back that up. Get out there. My final thoughts are this. Things are getting worse. Even though Trump is president, your risk level has not gone down any. You need to still be preparing.
Yeah, 100%. Watcher?
No, just thank you guys for joining us today. It's these are phenomenal numbers, and we couldn't do it without you. We hope you listen, and please go follow us on those other platforms, because it's very unlikely that YouTube will become less censorious before they do something dumb with our channel. So,
yeah.
Thank you all.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Watch you. Take us away.
2, 0, 1.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone.
3, 6, 4, 6.
The chair is against the wall.
3, 6.
The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5.
John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5, 0, 9.
It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.